welcome back to my channel. Happy Wednesday if you're watching it the day that I upload. Typically on Wednesdays I do a song analysis, and I'm sort of wanted to stay in the same vein of analysis of songwriting and arrangement and music, but I wanted to touch more on songwriting tips. I thought it'd be cool to just give you a few tips that I've learned from doing songwriting for, is a bunch of years now for my own stuff and just my experience as a fellow songwriter. And these tips, I hope they help you and hopefully inspire you at least a little bit to start songwriting if you haven't before, or maybe just continue songwriting even if you've been in it for a while. I'm going to do 3 tips today that I think are the best for songwriting, whether you're starting out or you've done it for a while now. I feel like a lot of songwriting tips on the internet are very sort of technical, if that makes sense. Like it's all about, this is how you write a melody and how do you make a melody catchy and things like that, where it's definitely helpful, but for me personally, the technical side is not what I have an issue with, if that makes sense. Like sometimes a lot of times it's writer's block or motivation, or following through with projects is like a huge one, I feel, for myself and probably a lot of you guys out there that do songwriting. For some reason, it takes a lot to really follow through with finishing a whole song. The first one for me is writing something is better than writing nothing. What I mean by that is it's always better to write something and the next day think it was, listen back and think it was mediocre at best or even bad. I think it's better to get that practice in versus not writing at all. To me, it's songwriting is like a muscle. It's like the same thing as practicing scales on guitar. It feels hard to write songs when you're first starting because there's just a lot going on, and you don't really have a system down yet or any sort of kind of flow of how you would write a song. And it's just one of those things where the more you do it, the easier it gets. What I do for songwriting is, even if I'm feeling unmotivated or, I don't want to write a whole song or something, I'll write a section of a song every day. So at least I'm writing something. And if I'm not writing the music, then I'll be writing lyrics, and it doesn't have to go with any specific music, but just some lyrics that I write down that I could potentially use later. The more you do it, the better and the easier it gets. And one thing that I always like to stress to anybody, especially when it comes to anything in music, is especially with songwriting, is most of the stuff you write is probably going to be crap. And I feel like that's for anybody and everybody. We're not perfect, and we're not, if you're always striving to write something that's perfect and is going to be Grammy award-winning worthy, you're probably not going to do it because you're so focused on one song that you've been working on forever, and you need to get it perfect, and you want it to be, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to perfect a song, but it's almost like having too much of a chokehold on the song where it's you're just locked on this one idea. And after, and if you listen to an idea like that too much, it sort of gets lost in your ears, when you've been listening to the same track for even an hour straight. It's just sort of your ears get tired, and it's hard to really tell what you're even writing about anymore, or what's good or bad or up or down. I wouldn't say quantity is better than quality, but I would say it's good to strike a balance of always coming up with new ideas, because it's good to build up that muscle of creating new ideas, but then also having the drive to follow through with finishing songs as well. So I certainly think there's a balance to strike there, but I do think it's good to, especially if you're starting out in songwriting, to just exercise that creative writing muscle more often. Okay, so this one it's not that technical, but basically tip number 2 is to limit yourself. what I mean by limiting yourself is, for me personally, if I'm writing, I often get writer's block if I have too many options, whether that be samples, ideas. Like if it's just a blank slate and you tell someone just like, go, do something. It's one of those like freeze response things. It's like when someone asks you where you want to eat and you're like, suddenly you can't think of a single freaking restaurant that you want to eat at, and you're like, I don't care, and then, whatever. It's sort of like that, where it's like just information overload and you have way too many choices. So I find it helpful to put in place limits on myself when I'm songwriting, at least to start an idea. And this could be anything. You can really set any sort of limit. Like it could be something like sort of as broad as, I'm only going to write the like skeleton, the outline of the song with my guitar only. So I would do like percussive sounds for the drums, for the guitar, and then I would do the chords and then the bass line on the guitar and record all that and then see what comes out. But that way it gives me some sort of structure or like rubric to at least have some semblance of an idea of direction. So, you can limit yourself if, for example, you have trouble writing melodies. Say, I'm only going to use 5 notes for the whole melody of the chorus and see what you can come up with those 5 notes. Just things like that, like giving yourself these little rules, I find really helps in steering yourself in a direction. And even if you don't like the first idea, typically, at least for me, it leads to other ideas that I have based on the first one that I wrote, and it kind of snowballs from there. That's I would say that's sort of a technical tip, but definitely super helpful for writer's block, especially, personally for me, that's kind of what I use pretty often. And then tip number 3. So I call this tip Steal Like an Artist. It's based on the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. If you're an artist of any kind and you have not read the book, I 100,000% recommend you read it. I actually read it in college and for a class, and it's stuck with me ever since, and is probably one of my favorite reads, especially for creatives. No one person's ideas come purely from their head. Everything that we think of, the words that we learned growing up, any word that we have is all based on stuff that humans and other people have come up with before us. Technically, none of our ideas are original. There's a difference between plagiarizing and bouncing ideas from somebody else's idea or things like that. Like we pull and draw inspiration from so many things, and to say that any song or anything that we create or write is purely from our mind and imagination and nobody else alone, like it's not like we live in a vacuum, and some of the best ideas almost always are through collaboration or based off of somebody else's idea, building upon somebody else's idea. I always felt like I had to come up with super unique sounding melodies and like it has to be different and all these things. But I would say really just make stuff that you like, and especially if you're new to songwriting or even not, just to draw inspiration, to just like sort of emulate a song that you really like. Like, what do you like about it? Is it the bass line? Is it the tone of the bass line, the 808? Is it whatever synth patch they're using, whatever, how they're singing the melody? Like things like that are super helpful in really giving yourself tools to draw on when you're writing your own stuff. Or even sometimes I will, if there's a song I really like right now and I'm like, I really, really like that counter melody in this song, then I will write a chorus or something that is my own, but like utilize a counter melody within my song that is, has the same sort of melodic vibe of the song that I like. So it's just like, it's things like that where you can get ideas from other songs and basically build on them or bounce ideas off based off of those ideas. And I think that's a really, really helpful way of thinking of songwriting because, we're all inspired by other artists and other people and other things. So it's, nobody lives in a vacuum. So we're constantly being inspired and influenced by a bunch of different things. So I would say if you're super worried about plagiarizing or trying to sound super, super different when you're songwriting, I would say try not to focus on that as much as really just finding who and what inspires you, especially when it comes to songwriting and like what artists inspire you, what song inspires you right now, like what really gets you to like want to write is the biggest thing. I hope these tips were helpful for you guys. These are 3 of the best tips that I have personally come to realize and really articulate as I've gone through my own musical journey. I hope to some degree it was a little inspiring for you to start getting into songwriting or continue your songwriting. And I hope it helps you make it easier and hopefully more fun and inspiring for yourself. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. I appreciate you for sticking around. I will see you guys this weekend. Let me know if you guys would like another part of this series because I actually really like giving tips like this. So yeah, if you guys want more songwriting tips, whether that be technical or music theory related or just general songwriting things that work for me, just let me know. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.